Kaylin. So, we're back at another video. This video is going to be the top 5 worries I have for Black Ops 4. Because promised not to do any more top 5s, and now I'm doing another top 5. So, yeah. Just keep in mind the fact that I'm not necessarily saying that these things are going to happen, but just that they might potentially happen. And hopefully Treyarch took into consideration these things when they were making Black Ops 4. And hopefully these things do not ruin or even really detriment the overall game. So yeah, these are the top 5 worries I have for Black Ops 4. Number 5 is pretty obvious, I think, is innovation. So this is something that I only have at the number 5 spot because I really doubt that this is going to happen. But in terms of importance, this is one of the most important, if not the most important thing in Black Ops 4. Like, if Black Ops 4 Zombies does not innovate enough, the community is gonna get bored. The player base is gonna get bored. And Treyarch they've really done an amazing job over the past few years of innovating and making every single map feel fresh and new. And we're gonna hope that Black Ops 4 continues that train of thought. Hopefully Treyarch haven't run out of ideas. The only, I guess, possible way that this could happen is, I guess, because, you know, they're working on 4 maps. Like, I'll get into the 4 maps thing later, but there could potentially be this thing that happens where, like, not all the maps are, like, focused enough, and they start focusing on quantity instead of quality. And I don't think that's gonna happen. I think Treyarch are gonna nail both quality and quantity down, but it's a worry nonetheless. And if Treyarch doesn't innovate enough, the game's gonna be, it's just not gonna last that long. But seems that what they've shown us so far, it seems that Black Ops 4 is gonna be super innovative. We just hope that there's more innovation from what they've already showed us, on top of what they've already showed us. Alright, number 4. This is the DLC season. This is something that I think needs to be addressed. There's nothing necessarily wrong about it, but the thing is that we're getting 4 maps on disc. 4, and there's only 4 DLC maps. So, like, half of the content is going to be available at launch. The problem with that is that after a few months of being spoiled with 4 zombie maps, and then suddenly, like, for the DLC season only getting 1 map a month, it's going to feel unsatisfying, because at the beginning you're going to have established that, like, you know, 4 zombies maps for like 3 months, but now suddenly 1 zombies map every 3 months, 4 different times. That could potentially be an issue. It could kind of get the player base to lose interest, even if the maps that come during the DLC seasons are very good. It's just, there's a potential that because of what they set up at the beginning, it's just gonna, the community is gonna start, like, expecting that much content. And then suddenly the DLC season's just gonna feel not as satisfying. Because again, 1 new map for every 3 months. And you might be asking, what about DLC 5, Zombies Chronicles? Well, like, Zombies Chronicles 2 is, I don't see it happening. There's not enough maps in order to do it, and there's not enough good maps. Like, what, you're gonna remaster Transit? Like, I know a lot of people want that, but realistically, if they took the exact Transit that was in Black Ops 2, guarantee that most people would just not really play it. People like Transit for the memes, but people don't actually enjoy playing it. And at least me. So yeah, and most of the good maps were already done in the first Zombies Chronicles, so like Zombies Chronicles 2 wouldn't do as well. So what about like just extra remastered maps? Yeah, sure, but it's never gonna be the same or feel the same as Black Ops 3, and that's what I'm gonna be worried about. It's gonna be so awesome at the first 3 months when we have 4 maps on disc, but once like you start getting less and less maps per month, like I could see hype potentially like declining, which is certainly a problem. So yeah. Number 3. This one is kind of what I put here is that number 3 would be the game would be leaning too much towards veterans or too much towards casuals. And what I think one of the biggest issue with Black Ops 3 was that it focused too much on the veteran players, and it wasn't until later where they started making casual friendly maps like Gore, Grovey, Revelations. I would consider to be like casual friendly maps because they don't require a huge long setup, or at least a complicated setup. The beginning of Black Ops 3, like the first map was Shadows of Evil. That map was ridiculously complex, and new players just couldn't get into it, and that's why a lot of people hated Shadows of Evil at launch. And the only other map was the Giant, and the Giant you had to pay a $60 season pass for. And when you're a casual, you're not necessarily committed to buying that season pass yet. So most people just, they saw Shadows of Evil, got some first impressions, didn't like it, and then they just stopped playing zombies. And that's what's kind of happened over the past few years, that like there's such a big disconnect from the casual community and the hardcore community. And that's what I think. Black Ops 3 had this huge issue, and Black Ops 4 could potentially have this issue. Now, it looks as though Black Ops 4 is not going to have this, because they've added a tutorial mode, they've had the zombie rush mode, which I think could really help casual players out. But there's still a potential that the maps themselves might just be too complex. Even like the map 9, which is supposed to be like the easy map, like it's not going to be easy if it's too complex to set up. So yeah, I think there's also the potential that it's going to be too casual friendly. This doesn't seem like something that Treyarch would do or Jason Blundell would do, but it's worth pointing out, because if it does potentially happen, it's just gonna be awful. Like, I don't think I really need to explain it, but yeah, I don't think any of those are gonna happen, but they could potentially happen, and the game would suffer greatly from them. Number 2, the characters. From what we've seen from the characters, they look pretty awesome. But when you look at the, like, I guess, I was about to say, like, when you look at the track record of, like, Treyarch characters, they've actually been pretty positive. I was about to say that they're negative, but it's actually pretty positive. It's just one specific crew that I have in mind that's really was received very poorly, and that was the Transit crew. They've gotten more love over the past few years because they've actually gone a lot of development through the comics, and that's like I give props to Jason Blundell. Like, they've done a really good job with actually redeeming the Transit crew. But before that, when they were just in Black Ops 2 Zombies, they were awful and they were hated. No one liked them, really. Like, I mean, some people liked Misty, but like, you guys all know the only reason why Misty was really loved, like, not because of her quotes herself, it's because of her yeah, I'll just leave it there. So yeah, Jason Blundell does amazing with his characters. The premise characters are absolutely amazing. The Mob of the Dead crew is awesome. The Shadows of Evil crew is awesome. And that makes me think that these new Chaos characters are going to be really good. Plus, apparently, Treyarch have wanted to do them since, like, Black Ops 2. So, it doesn't seem like they're gonna fuck up the characters, but there is a potential that it could happen and they could end up being like the transit characters. So they really have to really have to nail them in Voyage and 9. Like, if they're uninteresting, then people are just gonna lose interest in that entire like new story. And because the DLC maps are probably going to be based on the Chaos storyline, again goes back to the DLC thing. I could see the DLCs losing a lot of hype just because not only is there because of the fact that there's one map every 3 months after previously establishing like 4 maps at launch, but also just because the characters and the whole like entire world of the Chaos story could potentially just be uninteresting for people. It's something that Patrick pointed out in his video as well, but I don't think it's gonna happen, but it is certainly a concern. Before we get to number 1, I want to give an honorable mention. So it's the elixirs. These are basically Gobblegum. So, and they're very similar, if not an exact copy of Gobblegums. And that on its own is not bad. I actually really liked the Gobblegums from Black Ops 3. I thought that they really helped change the way you played and made every game unique because you could throw in a different Gobblegum loadout. But a lot of people did not like the Gobblegums, and I can understand why. Some of them were ridiculously overpowered and made the game easy. Like, for example, near-death experience, profit sharing, round robin, power vacuum, perkaholic, shopping free. Like, the list goes on. Immolations, like, there's so many Gobblegums that are like, if you were tryharding, you would put those Gobblegums on, and you would just... It makes some aspects of the game just stupidly easy, and I don't think people want that again. I personally like the fact that they dumped a bunch of like overpowered Gobblegums at the end of like Black Ops 3's life cycle, because it was kind of like a, hey, thank you for playing Black Ops 3 throughout the year. Now you get a bunch of shit to have fun and play with, but... Like, I don't want that to happen again. And not because I didn't like it, but I don't want Black Ops 4 to be the same way. I want Black Ops 4 to be different and unique. I want the mutations to be the main thing that adds gameplay variety. I'm not saying that all the Gobblegums should be scrapped, because I think there was a lot of really cool ideas. Like, I mean, we saw Pop Shocks in the trailer. Like, that, for example, I think is a perfectly fine Gobblegum to bring back. I think most of the Gobblegums in general are a good idea to bring back, and I think that they could add a really good variety to the game. Treyarch's just gotta make sure that they don't make any of them too overpowered if they bring some back or potentially make new ones. But I do really hope that they focus on making new perks instead of new Gobblegums. I kind of hope the Gobblegums are just kind of a side thing and not something that they focus in on so much. Because, I mean, it's not Monty's world anymore. This is the Chaos storyline. This ain't like... This ain't Dr. Monty's world anymore. So, but... Alright, so that's the honorable mention. Number 1, I think you guys saw this coming. It's No Jug. Yeah. This is not confirmed, but I would bet, like, I'd say the chances that there's no Jug in Black Ops 4 is like 90%. And it's been very it's been received with very mixed to negative reception from the community. It seems that most people are not a fan of it, and the people who are are still kind of worried about it. But me, I'm kind of I'm on more of the optimistic side. I think that it could potentially work out, but I can't deny that it could potentially create a huge issue. The reason why I think that it's gonna work out is because I think that this is a ballsy decision. Like, Treyarch wouldn't just take a few seconds just to think, oh, okay, we're just gonna remove Jug. I think Treyarch, like, thought long and hard about it. I mean, there was apparently a huge long debate in the Treyarch studios just about balancing Widow's Wine. Imagine how long they spent just, like, thinking about how they would, like, implement Jug. Like, how they would implement this new Jug system. So apparently how it is, it's gonna be like armor from World War II, except for you don't buy it, but you get kills with your special weapon. I don't even know how the special weapons work, but I think that what the community needs in terms of the armor is a system that's still convenient. I think that the armor system was a little bit too inconvenient. It costed so much points that you would run very scarce on points on later rounds, and sometimes you just didn't have enough to buy it, and that was just extremely frustrating. And I don't think that might not necessarily happen for Black Ops 4, but I think a lot of people are... It could create some huge problems, and if we do have a system that is like the armor, that was equivalent to the armor system in Black Ops 4, this would, like, turn so many players away from Black Ops 4 Zombies at the get-go. Like, they just quit once they saw that. I see the point of it, because Juggernog is a crutch perk. Like, you always buy it. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, it's the tradition, but, like, that's not a good thing. If you're doing the same thing every single game, you're buying Juggernog. It's the first perk you buy. This is gonna change that, hopefully, make it so that, like, Juggernog, I really like the idea of Juggernog not being a perk, because, like, Juggernog is so much superior to every other perk that you just are gonna buy it every single time. This is gonna give more perk variety, but if the system is not as convenient as Juggernog, it's gonna cause problems, and a lot of people are still gonna have issues. So the goal I think that Treyarch needs to accomplish with this new armor system, or whatever it's called, they need to make sure that it's just as convenient, if not more convenient, than Juggernog was. Otherwise, like, if it takes too much time, like, the community's just gonna overreact. I don't mind if it takes if it's like a little bit of time, maybe you gotta get like 20 kills or something, and then, but even that, like, I think the community would not like in general. So it's gonna be really, I think, like, the safe route probably would have been just to make it a mutation so that you could choose to have this system or just have Juggernog on the map. But you know what, I appreciate that Treyarch decided to they went ballsy on this one. They were like, you know what, we're gonna do us. We're gonna do what we want to the game. We're gonna do what we think is gonna make this game better. And I don't want it to be one of those things where, like, the Juggernog system is just stupid at launch, and then suddenly the community complains and the Treyarch has to patch it. Like, I don't want to see something like that. I want to see something where, like, the game is just, like, close to perfect at launch, and that, like, the only patches that they're gonna need is, like, you know, glitches and stuff like that. But I really hope that that they do not, well, like, I just hope that they don't have to, like, completely redesign the map like they did with Shadows of Evil, where they had to change so many things. Like, Shadows of Evil now is so much different than it was at launch, and I hope that they won't have to do that. But yeah, the gameplay just ended, but I'm gonna keep talking for a little bit. Speaking of glitches, probably should have said this as an honorable mention, but yeah, glitches I think is an honorable mention. I'm just gonna mention it briefly. I mean, if you guys remember when the Black Ops 3 was in its prime, like there were so many glitches on like the maps, like especially Zetsubo, Nishima, Gorokrobi, and Revelations. Those maps had so many glitches at launch, and they really turned off a lot of people, especially Zetsubo and Revelations, and also Origins for Zombies Chronicles. That map also had a ridiculous amount of glitches. Like Drake needs to make sure that their maps has as little glitches as possible. I think they did a really good job in the first couple maps. Shadows of Evil and Horizon Direct didn't have too many glitches, but yeah, glitches is honorable mention number 2. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, because that shows me that you want to see more. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.